The morning started like any other for Captain Sarah Chun aboard the Deep Space Mining Station Endeavour. She was reviewing the daily mineral extraction reports when the first explosion shattered the outer hull. Emergency klaxons screamed through the corridors as she rushed to the command center, her boots echoing against the metal grating. "Report," she barked at her communications officer. "Unknown vessels, Captain. They came out of nowhere. No warning, no attempt at communication. They just started firing." Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice cracked with fear as another blast rocked the station. Through the reinforced viewports, Sarah could see sleek, obsidian ships moving with predatory grace around their mining station. Their hulls seemed to absorb light itself, making them appear like tears in space. Bright energy beams lanced out from their weapons arrays, systematically destroying the station's defensive systems. "Get me a line to Earth Command," Sarah ordered, gripping the edge of her command console as debris from a destroyed communications array drifted past the window. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Marcus Webb's weathered face. Behind him, the Strategic Command Center at Luna Base buzzed with frantic activity. His expression was grim. "Captain Shun, we're getting similar reports from 17 other stations across the Outer Rim. Mining facilities, research outposts, even civilian transport ships. They're hitting everything." The Admiral's voice was steady despite the chaos visible behind him. Sarah's blood ran cold. "Sir, who are they? Have they made any demands?" "Nothing. No communication whatsoever. They appeared simultaneously at multiple locations and began firing immediately. We've lost contact with the Kepler station and the research facility at Titan 7. Another massive explosion shook the Endeavour, and Sarah could see through the viewports that one of the alien vessels was moving closer, its weapons charging for what looked like a killing blow. The station's shields flickered and died. "Admiral, we're not going to make it. The station is coming apart. I'm ordering an evacuation of all personnel to the emergency pods." "Negative, Captain. Stand your ground. Reinforcements are..." The transmission cut as another blast destroyed their main communications array. Sarah turned to her crew, seeing the fear in their eyes, but also something else, determination. These were miners, scientists, and engineers, not soldiers, but they were human. "All hands, this is the captain. Abandoned ship procedures are now in effect. Get to the escape pods immediately." She activated the ship-wide comm system, her voice echoing through the dying station. As her crew rushed to the evacuation pods, Sarah remained on the bridge with Rodriguez and Chief Engineer Thompson. She wouldn't leave until everyone else was safe. Through the viewport, she watched as the first escape pod launched, followed by another. The alien ships completely ignored them, continuing their methodical destruction of the station itself. "Why aren't they targeting the pods?" Rodriguez asked, confusion evident in his voice. Thompson, a grizzled veteran of the asteroid mining industry, squinted at the alien ships. "Maybe they don't consider us a threat. Or maybe they want witnesses." Sarah watched as the last escape pod cleared the station. Now it was their turn. As they reached the final pod, she took one last look at the command center that had been her home for 3 years. The Endeavour had been humanity's furthest mining outpost, a symbol of their expansion into the galaxy. The escape pods' engines fired, pushing them away from the dying station. Behind them, the alien ships continued their work with mechanical precision, reducing humanity's achievements to floating debris. But they had made a critical error. They had left survivors. As their pod drifted toward the emergency beacon that would summon rescue ships, Sarah activated the emergency recorder. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the mining station Endeavour. At 0847 ship time, we were attacked without warning by unknown alien vessels. The attack was unprovoked and brutal. 17 stations have been hit simultaneously. This is the first act of war against humanity." She paused, watching the alien ships through the small porthole. "To whoever finds this recording, they think we're weak. They think one attack will break us. They're about to learn they've made the biggest mistake in galactic history." Meanwhile, 3,000 light-years away on Earth, President Elena Vasquez stood in the Oval Office, staring at the holographic display showing the locations of the attacks. Red markers indicated destroyed or severely damaged stations, while yellow ones showed facilities that had gone silent. Secretary of Defense Admiral Jackson stood beside her, his face pale. "Madam President, the pattern is clear. This wasn't random. They hit our most remote installations first, places where response time would be longest. They're testing our defenses." Elena nodded grimly. "How many casualties?" "Initial reports suggest over 12,000 dead or missing. The stations were mostly civilian, miners, researchers, their families." Jackson's jaw tightened. "They hit the school, transport heading to the new Geneva colony. 300 children, Madam President." The President closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of those losses. When she opened them, her gaze was steel. "What's our military response?" "The Fifth Fleet is already moving toward the Outer Rim. Admiral Brooks has orders to establish a defensive perimeter around our remaining installations. But, ma'am, we don't know what we're facing. These ships are using technology we've never seen before." Elena walked to the window, looking out at the city below. People went about their daily lives, unaware that humanity had just been thrust into its first interstellar war. Children played in parks, couples walked hand in hand, street vendors sold their wares. All of it suddenly seemed precious and fragile. "Admiral, I want every ship in our fleet mobilized. Recall all deep space vessels immediately. And contact the Colonial Defense Network. I want to know the status of every settlement from here to the Andromeda Relay." "Yes, ma'am. What about public announcement?" Elena turned back to face him. "Not yet. We need more information first. But start preparing contingency plans. If this escalates, our people need to be ready." As the Admiral left to carry out his orders, Elena remained alone with her thoughts. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it had come with violence and death. In the depths of space, aboard the alien flagship, Supreme Commander Zefak observed the destruction of the human installations with cold satisfaction. The bridge of his vessel was a cathedral of darkness, illuminated only by the soft glow of tactical displays. His elongated form moved with liquid grace as he studied the data flowing across his command interface. "The primitive structures have been eliminated as planned," Supreme Commander reported his tactical officer Vorth. "Resistance was minimal. Their weapons are crude, their defenses laughable." Zefak's three eyes focused on the tactical display, showing the locations of their strikes. "And their response?" "Several of their military vessels are moving toward the attacked regions, but they are slow and cumbersome. Our intelligence was accurate. They pose no significant threat." The Supreme Commander's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. The Zephyrians had conquered 17 star systems, each one falling within cycles of the initial assault. The pattern was always the same: strike hard, demonstrate overwhelming superiority, and the prey species would surrender rather than face extinction. Begin Phase 2. Target their more populated installations. But leave survivors. They must witness our power and carry word to their leaders. "What of their military response, Supreme Commander?" Zefak's tail lashed once, a sign of dismissive confidence. "Let them come. It will save us the effort of hunting them down." Back on Earth, in the underground command bunkers beneath the Rockies, General Patricia Hayes coordinated the military response. Banks of screens showed the positions of every human ship in known space, defensive installations, and the projected approach vectors of the alien fleet. "General, we've established contact with the survivors from the Endeavor," reported Colonel Martinez. "Captain Chen's report confirms the enemy vessels used some form of stealth technology. Our sensors detected them only seconds before they opened fire." Hayes studied the tactical display. "What about their weapons?" "Energy-based, highly concentrated. They cut through our standard hull armor like it wasn't there. But, General, there's something else. The survivors report that the aliens completely ignored the escape pods. They could have destroyed them easily, but chose not to." "Psychological warfare," Hayes concluded. They want survivors to spread fear. Classic terror tactic. She turned to her staff officers. What's the status of the Fifth Fleet? Admiral Brooks reports his ships will reach the Outer Rim defensive line in 18 hours. He's requesting permission to engage the moment he makes contact. Hayes nodded. Granted, but tell him to be smart about it. We need intelligence on their capabilities, not just a glorious charge into enemy guns. As reports continued to flow in from across human space, a pattern emerged that chilled Hayes to the bone. The attacks weren't random or opportunistic. They showed detailed knowledge of human installations, shipping routes, and defensive capabilities. Someone had been watching humanity for a long time. Colonel, I want a full review of all deep space communication logs for the past 5 years. Look for anything unusual, unexplained signals, sensor ghosts, missing time and patrol reports. If these aliens have been studying us, they left traces. Yes, ma'am. General, what if this is just the beginning? What if those installations were just the opening move? Hayes looked at the strategic display showing humanity's far-flung colonies and stations. Each one suddenly seemed vulnerable, isolated, defensible only if they knew where the next attack would come. But the aliens had demonstrated they could strike anywhere with impunity. Then, we'd better learn fast how to fight an enemy we've never faced before. On the bridge of the destroyer UHS Retribution, Admiral Catherine Brooks studied the debris field that had once been the mining station Series Alpha. Her ship was the first to reach one of the attack sites, and what she found sent chills down her spine. Sensor sweep complete, Admiral, reported Commander Singh. No survivors detected. The station was completely vaporized. Only small debris remains. Brooks floated near the main viewport in the zero-gravity command section, watching pieces of what had been someone's home drift past. Any sign of the attackers? Negative. But, Admiral, look at this. Singh highlighted a section of the debris field on the holographic display. The destruction pattern is precise, almost surgical. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum structural damage. They had detailed knowledge of our station designs. Brooks felt anger building in her chest. How many people were stationed here? 837, including families. Mining operations, hydroponics facility, small manufacturing plant. Singh's voice was quiet. Admiral, there are children's toys in the debris field. Brooks closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with renewed determination. Set course for the Kepler Station attack site. Maximum burn. And, Commander, start running continuous deep space scans. If these bastards are still out there, I want to know about it. The Retribution's engines flared to life, pushing the destroyer toward the next crime scene. Behind them, the debris field of Series Alpha continued its silent drift through space, a monument to the thousands of lives lost in humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. As news of the attacks spread through the underground networks that connected human space, reactions varied wildly. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory workers demanded immediate evacuation. On the agricultural planet of Eden Prime, farmers organized into militia groups determined to defend their land. In the research stations around Jupiter, scientists frantically began developing new technologies that might help even the odds. Dr. Maria Santos stood in her laboratory aboard the orbital research platform Galileo, staring at the preliminary data from the attack sites. As humanity's leading expert in exotic energy systems, she had been called upon to analyze whatever fragments of alien technology might be recovered. Computer-run analysis on energy signature Delta 7, she commanded, highlighting a particular section of sensor data from the Endeavour attack. Analysis complete. Energy signature shows coherent particle stream with quantum entanglement properties. Technology level assessment, significantly beyond current human capabilities. Maria slumped in her chair. She had hoped the preliminary reports were wrong, that perhaps the alien weapons weren't as advanced as they seemed. But the data was clear. Humanity was facing an enemy with technology centuries ahead of their own. Dr. Santos. Her assistant, Dr. Kim Park, entered the laboratory carrying a data tablet. "I've been analyzing the attack patterns. You need to see this." Maria accepted the tablet and studied the information. "These targeting solutions, they're perfect. No wasted shots, no missed targets. Their accuracy is beyond anything we can achieve." "Doctor, there's more. Look at the timing." Kim highlighted specific timestamps from the attacks. All 17 strikes began within a 15-second window, coordinated across thousands of light years of space. The implications hit Maria like a physical blow. Instantaneous communication across interstellar distances. They have faster-than-light communication that doesn't rely on quantum entanglement relays. As the scientific community grappled with the technological gap, ordinary citizens across human space began to react to the news. The government's attempts to control information flow had failed within hours, as survivors' testimonies spread through social media and underground networks. On Earth, protests erupted in major cities. Some demanded immediate military retaliation, others called for attempts at peaceful contact. Fear and anger mixed in volatile combinations as humanity struggled to process the reality that they were not alone in the universe, and their cosmic neighbors had greeted them with violence. In the outer colonies, the reaction was more pragmatic. These were people who had already risked everything to make new lives among the stars. They had faced the dangers of space, hostile environments, and equipment failures. Now they faced a new threat, but they would meet it as they had met all the others, with determination and ingenuity. Captain Sarah Chan sat in the medical bay of the rescue ship Aurora, her escape pod having been picked up 6 hours after the Endeavor's destruction. Around her, other survivors from various attacks shared their stories, each account adding to the growing picture of an enemy that was efficient, ruthless, and technologically superior. They didn't seem interested in capture or communication, reported Engineer Thompson, his usually steady hands shaking slightly as he held a cup of coffee. "Just destruction, pure and simple." "But why leave survivors?" asked Dr. Reeves from the Kepler Station research team. "If they wanted to eliminate us, they certainly had the capability." Sarah had been thinking about the same question. "Because they want us to be afraid. They want us to know we can't fight them, can't stop them. They're trying to break our will to resist before the real invasion begins." The medical bay fell silent as the implications sank in. These attacks weren't the main event. They were just the opening move in a larger campaign. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were preparing for a full-scale assault on human space. But as Sarah looked around at the faces of the survivors, miners, scientists, engineers, ordinary people who had faced death and survived, she saw something that might surprise their attackers. Instead of the broken spirits the aliens expected, she saw anger. Instead of surrender, she saw determination. Humanity had been bloodied, but they were far from broken. And when they struck back, their enemies would learn that they had gravely underestimated the species they had chosen to attack. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since the initial attacks, and Admiral Catherine Brooks found herself commanding not just a single destroyer, but an entire battle group hastily assembled from ships across human space. The UHS Retribution now served as flagship for humanity's first interstellar war fleet, a collection of vessels never designed to fight an enemy this advanced. The bridge hummed with tension as her tactical officer, Commander Singh, reported the latest intelligence. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting movement in the Sigma Draconis system. Multiple contacts heading toward the colony at New Helvetica." Brooks studied the holographic display showing the alien fleet's projected course. New Helvetica housed over 2 million civilians, including the largest terraforming operation in human space. If the aliens followed their previous pattern, they would strike the orbital infrastructure first, then target population centers. "Time to intercept." 14 hours, ma'am." "But, Admiral, our fleet composition." Singh hesitated, knowing the grim reality they all faced. Brooks nodded grimly. Her battle group consisted of 12 destroyers, 8 frigates, and 3 heavy cruisers. powerful ships by human standards, but the recovered sensor data from previous attacks showed alien vessels that outgunned anything in the human fleet. I know, Commander. We're outmatched. But those people down there don't have anywhere to run, and we're not abandoning them. Across the fleet, similar conversations were taking place. Captain James Morrison of the heavy cruiser UHS Defiant gathered his senior officers in the wardroom. The mood was somber as they reviewed their battle plans. Let's be clear about what we're facing, Morrison began, activating a holographic display showing reconstructed images of the alien ships. These vessels are at least 50% larger than our cruisers, with weapons that can penetrate our armor like tissue paper. Their maneuverability is superior, and they seem to have some form of energy shielding we can't match. Chief Weapons Officer Lieutenant Commander Sarah Hayes leaned forward. Sir, what if we don't try to match them ship to ship? What if we use our advantages instead? What advantages? Asked Executive Officer Commander Torres skeptically. Numbers and unpredictability. The aliens have shown consistent tactical patterns. They prefer long-range engagements. They target infrastructure first, and they seem to expect traditional fleet formations. What if we don't give them what they expect? Morrison studied the tactical display. Elaborate. Wolfpack tactics, sir. We break the fleet into smaller groups, attack from multiple vectors simultaneously, force them to fight us on our terms instead of theirs. The concept was risky, abandoning the protective formations that had served human fleets for generations. But against an enemy with superior technology, conventional tactics would only lead to conventional defeat. On Earth, President Elena Vasquez sat in an emergency session of the Global Security Council. Representatives from every human world appeared as holograms around the oval table, their faces reflecting the fear and determination that had gripped humanity since the attacks. The evacuation of non-essential personnel from the outer colonies is proceeding, reported Colonial Administrator James Chun. But, Madam President, we can't abandon our infrastructure. These colonies represent 50 years of human expansion. And if we lose them to alien attacks, we lose everything anyway, countered Defense Secretary Admiral Jackson. The military consensus is clear. We need to consolidate our defenses around the core systems. Elena raised her hand for silence. What's the status of Admiral Brooks' fleet? They're moving to intercept an alien force heading for New Helvetica. Early engagement in less than 12 hours. Jackson's expression was grim. Madam President, this will be our first direct fleet engagement. The outcome will determine whether we can mount any meaningful defense at all, or whether we survive as a species, added Dr. Elena Morrison from the Science Advisory Council. Intelligence indicates the alien force heading for New Helvetica is 3 times larger than any previous attack group. This isn't a raid. It's the beginning of a systematic conquest. Elena felt the weight of billions of lives pressing down on her shoulders. Every human in space was looking to Earth for leadership, for hope, for some sign that their civilization could survive this assault. Admiral Brooks has her orders. She engages and gathers intelligence on enemy capabilities, even if it means sacrificing her fleet. The words tasted like ash in Elena's mouth. We need to know what we're fighting, regardless of the cost. Meanwhile, in the depths of space near New Helvetica, the alien fleet moved with predatory patience. Supreme Commander Zefak stood on his flagship's bridge, studying the tactical displays that showed both his own forces and the approaching human fleet. They are moving to intercept us, reported Tactical Officer Vorth. 17 vessels, primitive design, but numerous. Zefak's mandibles clicked with amusement. The prey thinks to challenge the hunter. How many cycles since we faced organized resistance? 7-star systems ago, Supreme Commander. The Altarians attempted a similar defensive action. Their fleet was destroyed in 12 time units. Yes, but their technology was more advanced than these humans. Still, the pattern remains the same. Initial desperation, futile resistance, then surrender. Zefak's tail lashed thoughtfully. Deploy the fleet in standard formation. Let them see our strength before they die. But as the alien fleet arranged itself for battle, something unexpected happened. The human ships suddenly dispersed, breaking formation and scattering across space in seemingly random directions. What are they doing? Vortha's confusion was evident in his biorhythmic patterns. Zfax studied the tactical display with growing unease. In all his experience conquering lesser species, he had never seen a fleet deliberately abandon formation when facing superior numbers. Maintain course. Perhaps they flee. Yet the human ships weren't running. They were positioning themselves in a complex, three-dimensional web around the alien fleet, using their superior numbers to create multiple threat vectors simultaneously. Admiral Brooks watched the alien reaction from the bridge of the Retribution. They're maintaining formation, just as predicted. They expect us to come at them head-on, like some ancient naval battle. Incoming transmission from the Defiant, reported Communications Officer Martinez. Captain Morrison confirms all attack groups are in position. Brooks nodded, feeling her heart pound with anticipation and fear. This engagement would determine whether humanity had any hope of mounting a defense against the invasion. All groups, this is Admiral Brooks. Remember, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to learn how to win the war. Gather intelligence, test their responses, and survive if you can. Execute Prometheus Protocol. Across space, human ships began their attack runs from 6 different directions simultaneously. The Prometheus Protocol abandoned all conventional fleet tactics in favor of chaos and unpredictability. Individual ship commanders were given broad objectives, but complete freedom in how to achieve them. The aliens responded predictably, maintaining their tight formation and directing their fire at the largest threat groups. But instead of presenting a single target, the human fleet had become a swarm of individual threats that couldn't be eliminated efficiently. Captain Morrison pushed the Defiant into a spiraling attack run that brought him dangerously close to an alien heavy cruiser. All weapons target their forward weapon arrays. Let's see how they like fighting without their main guns. The Defiant's particle cannons opened fire, striking the alien ship's sleek hull. To Morrison's surprise, the shots penetrated the enemy's defenses, sending plumes of venting atmosphere into space. The alien ship's return fire was devastating, but the Defiant had already changed course, using its momentum to slide past the enemy's firing arc damage report. Forward shields down 60%. Armor breached in sections 7 and 12, but we're still in the fight, reported Damage Control Officer Kim Park. Across the battle space, similar engagements were taking place. The destroyer UHS Vigilant, commanded by Captain Lisa Rodriguez, used her ship's superior maneuverability to conduct hit-and-run attacks on alien flanks. The frigate's courage and determination worked in tandem, one ship drawing fire while the other targeted enemy weapon systems. But the aliens were learning too. After the initial surprise wore off, they began adapting to human tactics. Individual ships broke formation to pursue the most aggressive human attackers, while others provided covering fire. Admiral, we're taking heavy casualties, reported Commander Singh. The Baltimore is destroyed, the Yorktown is venting atmosphere, and the Sovereign has lost main power. Brooks watched the tactical display with growing desperation. Her unconventional tactics had achieved initial success, but the technological gap was simply too wide. Human weapons that had damaged alien ships in the opening minutes were now barely scratching their adaptive armor, while alien return fire continued to devastate her fleet. All ships begin withdrawal phase. We've learned what we came to learn, but the aliens had other plans. As the human ships attempted to disengage, alien pursuit craft launched from the main fleet. These smaller vessels were faster than anything humanity had deployed, and they began systematically hunting down the retreating human ships. Captain Morrison found the Defiant pursued by 3 alien interceptors, their weapons carving through a ship's rear armor. Emergency power to engines. Dump all non-essential mass. The Defiant shuddered as cargo containers, furniture, even personal belongings were jettisoned in a desperate attempt to gain speed. But the alien ships continued to close, their exotic propulsion systems providing acceleration curves that human technology couldn't match. "Sir, we're not going to make it," reported Commander Torres. "They'll overtake us in 6 minutes." Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, young men and women who had signed up to explore the stars, not to die in humanity's first interstellar war. He made a decision that would echo through military history. "All stop. Reverse course. We're going back." "Sir," Torres stared at his captain in confusion. "If we're going to die anyway, let's make it count. Signal the fleet. Any ship that can't escape should turn and fight. Take as many of them with us as possible." The message spread through the retreating human fleet. Ships that were damaged, outgunned, or simply too slow to escape began turning back toward their pursuers. It was a desperate last stand, but it achieved something the aliens hadn't expected. It bought time for the surviving ships to escape. The destroyer UHS Retribution, her engines damaged in the fighting, found herself facing 2 alien heavy cruisers. Admiral Brooks stood on her bridge, watching as enemy weapons charged for what would certainly be a killing blow. "Admiral, escape pods are standing by," reported Singh. Brooks shook her head. "No, we stay with the ship. Signal all hands. We die as we lived, serving humanity." But before the alien weapons could fire, something unexpected happened. The heavy cruiser UHS Indomitable, which had been presumed destroyed earlier in the battle, emerged from behind a debris field and rammed the nearest alien ship at full acceleration. The collision was devastating. Both ships disintegrated in a ball of plasma and twisted metal, but the explosion provided cover for the Retribution to escape. Similar acts of sacrifice were playing out across the battle space as human crews chose death with honor over surrender. In the aftermath, as the surviving human ships limped away from New Helvetica, the tactical picture was grim. Of Admiral Brooks' original 23 ships, only 7 remained functional. But they had achieved something crucial. They had proven that human courage could inflict damage on an enemy that considered itself invincible. Supreme Commander Zefak studied the battle reports with growing unease. His fleet had achieved victory, but at a cost he hadn't anticipated. 3 of his heavy cruisers were severely damaged, 2 had been destroyed, and his pursuit squadrons had taken significant casualties. "These humans fight differently than previous species," observed Vorth. "They show no regard for preservation of their vessels or crews." Zefak's biorhythms reflected deep thought. "No, it is more than that. They adapted their tactics during the engagement. They learned from our responses and adjusted accordingly. This suggests intelligence beyond what our scouts reported. Shall we proceed with the assault on the planet?" Zefak studied the tactical display showing New Helvetica. The human colony was defenseless now, its protective fleet scattered or destroyed. But something about the battle had disturbed his assumptions about this species. "Negative. We withdraw to regroup. Send long-range scouts to observe the human response. I want to understand how they think before we commit to full conquest." It was the first time in his career that Zefak had chosen caution over immediate victory. Something about these humans had proven different from every other species he had conquered. On Earth, President Elena Vasquez stood before a global audience, her face grave as she delivered humanity's response to the Battle of New Helvetica. "We have suffered losses that pierce the heart of every human being. Ships destroyed, brave crews lost, and colonies threatened by an enemy we barely understand." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle over her audience. "But we have also learned something vital. We can fight them, we can hurt them, and, most importantly, we can survive them." The camera zoomed in on her face, capturing the determination in her eyes. "To our colonies under threat, to our fleets in deep space, to every human who looks up at the stars and wonders if we will survive, know this. We're not the same species that was attacked 3 weeks ago. We are learning, adapting, and growing stronger with each engagement. This war was not of our choosing, but we will see it to its end. And When historians look back at this moment, they will see not the beginning of humanity's destruction, but the birth of humanity as a true interstellar civilization. The speech was transmitted across human space, carried by quantum relays to every colony, every ship, every outpost where humans had made their home among the stars. In mining facilities and research stations on terraforming worlds and orbital habitats, the message was the same: humanity would not go quietly into the night. Dr. Maria Santos stood in her laboratory aboard the Galileo station, studying fragments of alien technology recovered from the Battle of New Helvetica. The debris represented humanity's first opportunity to examine their enemy's capabilities up close. Computer analyzed metallurgical composition of Sample 7. Analysis complete. Material shows quantum-level engineering. Molecular structure appears to be programmable at the atomic level. Maria frowned at the results. The aliens weren't just more advanced, they were using principles of physics that humanity was only beginning to understand. But understanding was the first step toward developing countermeasures. Dr. Santos. Her assistant Kim entered the lab carrying an urgent message tablet. Priority communication from Earth Command. They're asking for a preliminary assessment of enemy technology. Maria looked at the alien fragments scattered across her laboratory tables. Each piece represented a puzzle humanity would need to solve if they were to survive. Tell them we're looking at technology that's at least 500 years beyond our current capabilities. But Kim, also tell them something else. It's still technology. It follows physical laws. And anything that can be built can be understood, replicated, or destroyed. As word of the battle spread through human space, reactions varied dramatically. Some colonies began evacuation procedures, while others armed themselves for siege warfare. Scientists worked around the clock to develop new weapons and defenses. Military academies revised their curricula to focus on asymmetric warfare against superior enemies. But perhaps most importantly, humanity began to change psychologically. The comfortable assumption that they were alone in the universe was gone forever. In its place grew a harder truth. They lived in a dangerous galaxy, and their survival would depend on their ability to adapt, learn, and fight. Captain Sarah Chun, now recovered from her ordeal at the Endeavour, found herself reassigned to the UHS Prometheus, a new class of ship being rushed into production. The Prometheus incorporated lessons learned from the recent battles: heavier armor, more maneuverable engines, and weapons designed specifically to penetrate alien defenses. "Captain, we're receiving final crew assignments," reported her new executive officer, Commander Maria Torres. "Volunteers from across the fleet. Everyone wants to serve on the ships that are fighting back." Sarah nodded, understanding the sentiment. The initial shock of the alien attacks had given way to a burning desire for revenge. Humanity had been bloodied, but they were far from beaten. "Prepare the crew for departure. Our orders are to conduct reconnaissance in force along the outer rim. We're going hunting." The Prometheus and ships like her represented humanity's evolution in the face of existential threat. No longer content to simply react to alien attacks, human military doctrine was shifting toward aggressive reconnaissance and preemptive strikes. As the Prometheus departed Earth orbit, Sarah looked back at the blue world that had given birth to humanity's dreams of the stars. Those dreams had been shattered by alien violence, but from the fragments, something harder and more dangerous was being forged. The galaxy had expected humanity to shatter under the weight of superior technology and overwhelming force. Instead, they were learning that humans possessed something their enemies hadn't anticipated: the ability to transform defeat into education, losses into motivation, and fear into fury. The real war was about to begin. 6 months after the Battle of New Helvetica, the war had evolved into something neither side had initially expected. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the UHS Prometheus, watching as her tactical display showed the results of humanity's latest innovation in interstellar warfare. "Drone swarm deployment successful, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres. All 300 units are active and beginning their approach on the alien patrol. Through the main view screen, Sarah could see tiny points of light moving toward the enemy ships like a cloud of angry insects. Each drone was barely larger than a fighter craft, constructed from salvaged materials and equipped with a single mission: ram into alien ships at maximum velocity, detonating their small but powerful warheads on impact. The aliens had superior technology, but they had never faced an enemy willing to sacrifice hundreds of unmanned vessels to destroy a single enemy ship. Human manufacturing had been retooled from mining equipment to weapons of war, and the results were both crude and terrifyingly effective. Enemy ships are responding, reported Tactical Officer Singh. They're engaging the drones with point defense systems. Sarah watched as alien energy beams lanced out, destroying dozens of drones in brilliant flashes of light. But for every drone destroyed, 2 more slipped through their defenses. The mathematics were simple. Humans could build drones faster than aliens could shoot them down. The first drone impacts sent shockwaves through the alien formation. While individually insignificant, the cumulative effect of hundreds of small explosions began to overwhelm even advanced alien shielding. One enemy cruiser, its shields failing under the sustained bombardment, tried to retreat, but found itself swarmed by the remaining drones. Target acquired. All batteries fire, Sarah commanded. The Prometheus and her escort ships opened fire with their upgraded weapons. Human particle cannons modified with technology reverse-engineered from alien wreckage. The beams punched through the damaged alien ship's hull, causing catastrophic detonations that lit up space like a newborn star. Enemy vessel destroyed, Captain. The remaining ships are withdrawing. Sarah nodded with satisfaction. This was the 15th successful engagement using swarm tactics, and each victory brought humanity closer to evening the technological odds. But she knew their enemy was learning too, adapting their own tactics to counter human innovations. Deep in space, aboard his flagship, Supreme Commander Zefak reviewed the battle reports with growing concern. What had begun as a simple conquest had become a grinding war of attrition that showed no signs of ending. The humans are employing new tactics again, reported Intelligence Officer Keth. Mass deployment of expendable attack craft, coordinated with heavier ship assaults. Our casualty rates have increased by 40% over the past 3 cycles. Zefak's mandibles clicked in frustration. How many ships have we lost to these swarm attacks? 17 vessels destroyed, 31 damaged beyond immediate repair. Supreme Commander, perhaps we should request additional fleet assets from the homeworld. The suggestion stung Zefak's pride. Throughout his career, he had conquered entire star systems with minimal losses. The idea of requesting reinforcements to defeat a single primitive species was humiliating. Negative. We adapt our tactics as they do theirs. What have our scientists learned from captured human technology? Their technology is indeed primitive, but they employ it in unexpected ways. Their weapons are crude, but effective when used en masse. More concerning, Supreme Commander, is their rate of technological advancement. They are improving their capabilities at an unprecedented rate. Zefak studied the holographic display showing human space. What had once been clearly defined territories were now battlegrounds where no ship traveled safely. Human raiders struck at his supply lines, their hit-and-run tactics making traditional patrol patterns ineffective. They fight like a virus, he mused, individually weak, but collectively adapting faster than we can counter them. On Earth, President Elena Vasquez stood in the newly constructed Strategic War Room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the current state of the conflict. The room hummed with activity as military advisors, scientists, and intelligence analysts coordinated humanity's response to the ongoing invasion. Madam President, our latest intelligence suggests the alien fleet has been reinforced, reported Admiral Jackson. Long-range sensors detect at least 30 additional ships entering human space through the Vega corridor. Elena studied the tactical displays with concern. Can our current forces handle that level of escalation? Unclear. Our new tactics are effective, but they rely on numerical superiority. If the aliens commit significantly more ships to the conflict, we could find ourselves overwhelmed. Dr. Maria Santos stepped forward from her position at the Science Advisory Panel. Madam President, there may be another option. Our analysis of captured alien technology has revealed something interesting. Elena turned to focus on the scientist. Elaborate. The aliens use quantum encryption for their ship-to-ship communications. It's incredibly sophisticated, but it has a weakness. The quantum entanglement patterns they use are consistent across their entire fleet. If we could crack their encryption, we could potentially intercept and decode their battle plans in real time. Admiral Jackson looked skeptical. How long would it take to develop this capability? 3 months, maybe 4. But, Madam President, there's more. If we could not only intercept their communications, but also inject false information into their network, we could potentially turn their own coordination systems against them. Elena felt a spark of hope. Throughout the war, humanity had been reactive, responding to alien moves rather than dictating the pace of battle. The possibility of actually getting ahead of their enemies' planning was tantalizing. Dr. Santos, you have unlimited resources and priority authorization. Make it happen. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, a different kind of war was being fought. Commander Lisa Rodriguez piloted her modified fighter through the asteroid fields of the Kepler system, leading a squadron of human raiders on a mission that would have been unthinkable before the war. Target acquired, she reported over the comm system. Alien supply convoy. 3 ships plus escorts. Her squadron consisted of 20 fighters, each modified with weapons salvaged from destroyed alien vessels. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had advantages the aliens couldn't match: intimate knowledge of local space and a willingness to take risks no sane military commander would approve. Remember, we hit hard and fast. Target the cargo ships first, then withdraw. Don't try to be heroes. Dead pilots don't win wars. The human fighters burst from the asteroid field like wolves from a forest, their surprise attack catching the alien convoy off guard. Modified particle cannons, crude but effective, tore into the cargo ship's hulls while the escort vessels scrambled to respond. But Rodriguez had planned for their response. As the alien escorts moved to engage her squadron, preposition mines hidden among the asteroids detonated, creating a debris field that disrupted the aliens' formation and damaged 2 of their ships. Cargo Ship 1 is venting atmosphere. Cargo Ship 2 is losing power, reported Wing Commander Park over the tactical net. Confirm kills on both targets. All units, begin withdrawal sequence. The human fighters scattered in different directions, using the asteroid field's complex gravitational patterns to break sensor locks and escape pursuit. It was a tactic that required pilots with years of experience navigating dangerous space. And, most importantly, it worked. As her squadron regrouped at their hidden base on a rogue asteroid, Rodriguez reviewed the mission results with satisfaction. Another successful strike against alien supply lines. Another small victory in humanity's growing campaign of asymmetric warfare. But the war was taking its toll on both sides. Human casualties mounted with each engagement, and the constant stress of fighting a technologically superior enemy was wearing down fleet morale. On the alien side, Supreme Commander Zefak found himself dealing with supply shortages and increasing pressure from his superiors to end the conflict quickly. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Jean Watanabe, a civilian cryptographer working on the alien communication project, made a discovery that would change the course of the war. I've isolated the quantum signature patterns in their command transmissions, he reported to Dr. Santos during an emergency meeting. But, more importantly, I've identified something else. The aliens aren't just using quantum encryption, they're using quantum prediction algorithms. Santos leaned forward with interest, meaning their battle computers don't just coordinate current operations. They predict future human responses based on previous engagement data. That's how they've been adapting so quickly to our tactical innovations. The implications were staggering. The aliens weren't just superior in technology. They were using that technology to stay ahead of human tactical development. Every time humanity developed a new approach to battle, the alien computers had already calculated counter-strategies. But, Gene, if we can access their prediction algorithms, we can see what they expect us to do and do something else instead. Better yet, we can feed false data into their system and make them predict responses that will never come. Dr. Santos immediately contacted Admiral Jackson with a breakthrough. Within hours, the revelation had reached President Vasquez and the highest levels of military command. The plan that emerged was audacious in its scope. Instead of simply intercepting alien communications, humanity would attempt to hack into the enemy's central battle coordination system and turn their own predictive algorithms against them. The operation required resources from across human space. The most advanced quantum computers were networked together, creating a processing capability that rivaled anything in human history. The best hackers, cryptographers, and quantum physicists worked around the clock to develop the intrusion software. Meanwhile, the war continued to rage. Captain Sarah Chun found herself commanding a task force of 12 ships on a mission to draw alien attention while the cyber warfare operation proceeded. Her orders were simple: engage the enemy aggressively and make as much noise as possible. All ships, this is Prometheus actual. Today, we're not trying to win. We're trying to be noticed. Make them focus on us while our people work their magic back home. The human task force swept into the Tau Ceti system, where a large alien fleet was conducting operations against the local colonies. Instead of using hit-and-run tactics, Sarah ordered a direct assault on the enemy's main formation. Target their flagship, she commanded. All weapons, maximum rate of fire. Let's give them something to think about. The battle that followed was the largest engagement since New Helvetica. Human ships pressed their attacks with desperate courage while alien vessels responded with their characteristic precision and overwhelming firepower. But this time, the humans weren't trying to achieve a traditional victory. They were buying time and providing cover for the most important operation in human history. Back on Earth, Dr. Santos watched as her team's quantum intrusion software penetrated the alien command network. Layer after layer of encryption fell before their coordinated assault, until finally, they gained access to the enemy's battle prediction algorithms. "My God," whispered Dr. Watanabe as the alien data flowed across his screens. "Look at this. They've been modeling our responses for months. They know exactly how we'll react to every tactical situation." But Santos was already working on the next phase of the operation. Not anymore, they don't. Upload the false data package. Let's give their computers something to think about. The package contained fabricated intelligence about human fleet movements, technological capabilities, and tactical doctrines. More importantly, it included predictions about human responses that were completely wrong, designed to lead alien commanders into tactical traps. The effects were immediate. Across the battle space, alien fleet movements began to shift as their battle computers incorporated the false data into their tactical calculations. Ships moved to intercept human fleets that didn't exist, weapons were configured to counter threats that weren't coming, and defensive positions were established in all the wrong locations. Supreme Commander Zefak watched in growing confusion as his own tactical displays began showing impossible human fleet movements. According to his sensors, human ships were approaching from 6 different directions simultaneously, but his scouts reported empty space in most of those locations. "What is the status of our prediction algorithms?" he demanded. "All systems show normal operation, Supreme Commander. But the human fleet dispositions don't match any previous tactical patterns." For the first time since the war began, Zefak felt a chill of uncertainty. His entire strategy had been based on staying ahead of human tactical development through superior computational power. If that advantage was compromised, signal all fleet elements, assume standard defensive positions, and await further orders. Do not rely on predictive targeting until we understand what is happening. But it was too late. Across human space, fleet commanders who had been struggling against an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move suddenly found themselves facing confused and misdirected alien forces. The technological advantage that had made the aliens nearly invincible was now working against them. Captain Sarah Chun felt the shift in the tide of battle like a physical sensation. Alien ships that had been coordinating perfectly suddenly seemed disorganized, their movements erratic, and their targeting less precise. All ships pressed the attack. Something has changed in our favor. The human task force surged forward, taking advantage of the alien confusion to inflict devastating damage on ships that suddenly seemed vulnerable. For the first time since the war began, human forces were winning decisive victories instead of moral ones. The Battle of Tau Ceti ended with the destruction of an entire alien battle group and the retreat of their remaining forces. Across human space, similar victories were being won as the effects of the cyber warfare operation cascaded through the alien command structure. But perhaps more importantly, humanity had proven something crucial. They could not only adapt to alien technology, but actually turn it against its creators. The species that had been expected to shatter under pressure had instead learned to fight with weapons their enemies had never imagined possible. On Earth, President Vasquez addressed the nation with news of humanity's greatest victory yet. Today, we have shown the galaxy that human ingenuity is not bound by human technology. We have reached into our enemies' own systems and turned their strength into weakness. She paused, letting the significance of that achievement settle over her audience. But this is not the end of our struggle. It is the beginning of our victory. We have learned to fight as equals in a galaxy that sees us as primitives. Now we will show them what humans can accomplish when we refuse to accept defeat. The speech was transmitted across human space, carried to every world where humans had made their home among the stars. In research stations and military bases, in civilian shelters and orbital habitats, the message was clear: humanity had found its path to victory. The galaxy had expected them to shatter under superior force. Instead, they had learned to shatter the certainties of their enemies. And as word of their victories spread through interstellar space, other species began to take notice of the small blue world that had dared to fight back against the seemingly invincible Zephyrian Empire. The real war was far from over, but for the first time since it began, humanity was winning. 1 year after the first attacks, the galaxy had become a very different place. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the UHS Prometheus, but the ship around her bore little resemblance to the vessel she had commanded at the beginning of the war. Human engineering had evolved at an unprecedented pace, incorporating alien technology in ways its creators had never intended. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Altarian delegation," reported Communications Officer Martinez. "They're requesting permission to approach under diplomatic flags." Sarah nodded, still amazed by the transformation that had occurred. 6 months ago, the Altarians had been neutral observers of the human-Zephyrian conflict. Now they were actively seeking alliance with humanity, along with 3 other species that had previously lived in fear of Zephyrian expansion. Grant permission and establish escort formation. After what happened to the Centauri delegates last month, we're not taking any chances. The view screen showed the approaching Altarian ships, sleek vessels that bore the scars of recent battle. The Altarians had learned, as humanity had, that neutrality was not an option when facing the Zephyrian Empire. Their choice was simple: fight alongside the humans or face conquest alone. Through the quantum communication relay, Sarah received updates from across human space. The war had spread far beyond its original boundaries, becoming a galaxy-wide conflict as species after species chose sides in what historians were already calling the Liberation War. "Captain, priority transmission from Earth Command," announced Martinez. "Admiral Brooks is requesting immediate conference with all task force commanders." Sarah activated the holographic display, watching as the faces of human military leaders appeared around the virtual table. Admiral Catherine Brooks, now Supreme Commander of Human Forces, looked tired but determined as she addressed the assembled captains. Ladies and gentlemen, intelligence reports indicate the Zephyrians are massing their entire Imperial fleet for a final assault on human space. Our estimates put their force strength at over 300 capital ships, plus support vessels. The implications were staggering. Even with their technological advances and alien allies, humanity had never faced an enemy force of such magnitude. Captain Morrison of the UHS Defiant leaned forward in his chair. Admiral, what are our force projections? We can field approximately 150 capital ships, plus our drone swarms and the allied fleets. The Altarians are contributing 40 vessels. The Kepler Liberation Front another 25. Against traditional tactics, we'd be outnumbered 2-1. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Despite their victories, humanity still faced the fundamental challenge that had defined the entire war. They were fighting an enemy with superior numbers and technology. However, Brooks continued, we're not planning to use traditional tactics. Dr. Santos and her team have completed development of the Prometheus protocol. I'll let her brief you on the details. The hologram shifted to show Dr. Maria Santos, who looked as tired as everyone else, but carried an air of suppressed excitement. Captains, we've made a breakthrough that will fundamentally change how this war is fought. We've successfully decoded the quantum entanglement patterns that link all Zephyrian ships to their command network. She activated a technical display showing the complex mathematical relationships that governed alien fleet coordination. Every Zephyrian vessel is connected to every other vessel through quantum links. This gives them unprecedented coordination, but also creates a critical vulnerability. Captain Rodriguez from the Raider Squadrons spoke up. What kind of vulnerability? A cascade failure. If we can introduce the right quantum virus into their network, we can cause their entire fleet to lose coordination simultaneously. Ships will be unable to communicate with each other, their targeting systems will fail, and their command structure will collapse. Sarah felt a spark of hope, but also concern. Dr. Santos, what would be required to deliver this virus? Close-range quantum transmission directly into their flagship's communication array. Essentially, one of our ships would need to get within a few thousand kilometers of their command vessel and maintain position long enough for the virus to propagate through their network. The virtual conference room fell silent as the implications sank in. Getting that close to the enemy flagship would be a suicide mission, requiring a ship to penetrate the heaviest defenses in the Zephyrian fleet and remain stationary under concentrated fire. Admiral Brooks broke the silence. The Prometheus has been selected for this mission. Captain Shun, your ship has the most advanced quantum communication array in our fleet, and your crew has proven themselves capable of the impossible. Sarah felt the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. She looked around at the faces of her fellow captains, people who had become family during the long months of war. Many of them would not survive the coming battle, but they would die knowing their sacrifice meant something. I understand, Admiral. The Prometheus accepts the mission. 3 days later, the largest space battle in galactic history began in the Vega system. The Zephyrian Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their ships arranged in the geometric patterns that had brought them victory across 17 star systems. But they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. The human fleet, supported by their alien allies, met them not with traditional battle formations, but with something completely new, a three-dimensional web of ships, drones, and automated weapons platforms that turned the entire star system into a battlefield. Supreme Commander Zephax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Dominion, watching as the human forces deployed around his fleet like a living organism. After a year of fighting these creatures, he had learned to respect their ingenuity, but this display exceeded even his pessimistic expectations. Deploy all fighter squadrons, he commanded. Target priority goes to their capital ships. We end this quickly, before they can implement another of their surprises. But the humans were beyond surprises now. They had evolved into something the galaxy had never seen. A species that could match superior technology with superior tactics, overwhelming firepower with overwhelming cunning. The battle began with a massive drone assault that dwarfed anything previously attempted. Hundreds of thousands of automated weapons swarmed toward the Zephyrian fleet, their programmed intelligence adapted from captured alien algorithms. But these weren't the crude ramming drones of earlier engagements. These were sophisticated weapons platforms capable of coordinating their attacks with precision that rivaled organic crews. Point defense systems are being overwhelmed, reported Tactical Officer Vorth. Drone penetration is exceeding acceptable parameters. ZFAC watched as his fleet's defensive fire created a web of destruction around his ships, but still the drones came. Human manufacturing had reached levels of efficiency that seemed impossible. They were producing weapons faster than any civilized species could destroy them. Signal all ships. Concentrate fire on the human capital vessels. Ignore the drones. But as his fleet turned their weapons toward the human capital ships, the real attack began. The drones hadn't been sent to destroy his fleet. They had been sent to distract it. While Zephyrian gunners focused on the swarm attacks, human ships moved into firing positions that should have been impossible to achieve. Captain Sarah Chun watched the tactical display from the bridge of the Prometheus as her ship approached the enemy flagship. Around them, the largest space battle in history raged with an intensity that defied description. Ships died in balls of plasma, debris fields expanded like metal galaxies, and the space between the fleets burned with the fires of 1,000 weapons. Distance to target, 8,000 kilometers, and closing, reported Navigator Singh. Enemy defensive fire is intensifying. Sarah could feel the ship shudder under enemy fire as alien weapons found their mark. The Prometheus had been designed for this mission, with armor and shields far beyond anything previously mounted on a human vessel. But even her defenses had limits. Dr. Santos, how much longer do you need? The scientist looked up from her quantum communication array, sweat beading on her forehead despite the bridge's controlled environment. 2 minutes for full virus propagation. But, Captain, I need us to maintain position within 5,000 kilometers. Any further, and the quantum link won't hold. Sarah looked at the tactical display, showing the wall of fire between them and their target. 2 minutes might as well be 2 hours when facing the concentrated firepower of an entire enemy fleet. All hands, this is the captain. In 60 seconds, we're going to do something that's probably impossible. We're going to park next to the largest enemy ship in the galaxy and stay there long enough to end this war. I won't lie to you, we probably won't survive. But if we succeed, our children will grow up in a galaxy where humans are respected as equals, not hunted as prey. The Prometheus surged forward, her engines pushing the ship beyond safe operational limits. Around them, the battle reached a crescendo as human and Allied forces pressed their attacks with desperate courage. Ships died with every passing second, but each sacrifice bought time for the mission to succeed. 5,000 kilometers and holding position, announced Singh. Enemy fire is concentrating on our location. The ship shook violently as Zephyrian weapons found their target. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as system after system reported critical damage. But Dr. Santos remained focused on her equipment, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces as she guided the virus into the enemy network. Virus uploaded. Propagation beginning. Captain, I need 9 more seconds. Sarah watched her damage control display with growing desperation. The Prometheus was dying around them, her hull breached in dozens of locations, her shields failing under the concentrated enemy fire. But they had come too far to fail now. All remaining power to structural integrity fields. Dump everything else. The lights dimmed on the bridge as power was rerouted from life support, artificial gravity, and every non-essential system. The Prometheus became a ghost ship, held together by force fields and human determination. Then, suddenly, the enemy fire stopped. On the bridge of the Dominion, Zephac stared at his tactical displays in growing horror. Ship after ship throughout his fleet was reporting the same catastrophic failure: complete loss of communication with the command network. Weapons systems designed to coordinate their fire automatically were targeting each other. Navigation computers were receiving contradictory orders from multiple sources. "What is happening?" he demanded. Vortha's biorhythms showed patterns of panic that Zephac had never seen before. "Unknown, Supreme Commander. All network functions are failing simultaneously. Ships are firing on each other. Formation integrity is collapsing." Through the main view screen, Zephac could see the results of the cascade failure. His perfectly coordinated fleet was becoming a collection of individual ships, each fighting its own battle without coordination or support. Some vessels were firing on their own allies, their targeting systems corrupted by the human virus. How is this possible? The answer came from an unexpected source: a transmission from a human ship that had somehow survived the concentrated fire of his entire fleet. On his view screen appeared the face of a human female, her uniform torn and blood visible on her forehead, but her eyes blazing with determination. "Supreme Commander Zephac," Captain Sarah Chun said, her voice carrying across the quantum communication link. "My name is Sarah Chun, and I represent the human species you chose to attack without warning. Your fleet is finished. Your empire is finished. Surrender now, and we'll allow your crews to return home." Zephac felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career: defeat. Around his flagship, his mighty fleet was tearing itself apart as the human virus corrupted every system it touched. Ships that had conquered star systems were now helpless, their crews struggling with controls that no longer obeyed commands. "You cannot have done this. Your species lacks the technological capability." Chun smiled, and in that expression Zephac saw something that chilled him to his core. "You're right. We couldn't do it with our technology, so we used yours. We learned from every ship you sent against us, adapted from every piece of wreckage you left behind. You taught us how to fight you, and now you're learning the price of that education." The transmission ended, leaving Zephac alone with the ruins of his empire's greatest fleet. Around him, the bridge crew waited for orders that could not save them. The humans had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had turned superior technology against itself. "Signal all ships capable of receiving transmission," he said quietly. "General retreat. Return to Imperial space immediately." But retreat proved impossible. The virus had corrupted the navigation systems of most ships, leaving them unable to calculate hyperspace jumps. Those vessels that could still maneuver found themselves under attack from human and allied forces that showed no mercy for an enemy that had started the war with unprovoked aggression. The Battle of Vega ended with the complete destruction of the Zephyrian Imperial fleet. Of the 300 ships that had entered the system, fewer than 50 escaped to carry word of the defeat back to the Empire. The rest became debris fields that would orbit the system's star for millennia, monuments to the day humanity proved it could not be conquered. On Earth, President Elena Vasquez stood before the largest crowd in human history. Her words carried to every colony, every ship, every outpost where humans had made their home among the stars. "1 year ago, we were attacked without warning by an empire that considered us primitives, unworthy of consideration or mercy. They expected us to shatter under their assault, to beg for terms, to accept subjugation as the price of survival." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces before her. "Instead, we taught them the most important lesson in galactic history: never underestimate a species fighting for its survival. Never assume that superior technology guarantees victory. And never, ever, attack humanity without being prepared for the consequences." The crowd erupted in cheers, but Elena raised her hand for silence. "This victory belongs not just to our military forces, but to every human who refused to surrender, to the scientists who turned enemy technology against its creators, to the factory workers who built our fleets, to the civilians who endured hardship and loss without breaking. We are all soldiers in this war, and we have all earned this victory. In the months that followed, the effects of humanity's victory rippled across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire, which had dominated interstellar politics for centuries, found itself facing rebellions on dozens of worlds. Species that had lived in fear of imperial expansion suddenly had hoped that freedom was possible. The Altarians formally joined the growing Human Alliance, followed by the Kepler Liberation Front and 3 other species. What had begun as humanity's fight for survival had evolved into a galactic movement for liberation from imperial oppression. Dr. Maria Santos found herself leading a new scientific initiative, studying not just captured alien technology, but developing entirely new approaches to interstellar civilization. The quantum virus that had defeated the Zephyrian fleet became the foundation for communication networks that could link species across the galaxy without the vulnerabilities that had doomed their enemies. Captain Sarah Chun, now Admiral Chun, commanded the newly formed Alliance fleet, a force dedicated to protecting free species from imperial aggression. The lessons learned fighting the Zephyrians were being taught to allies across the galaxy, spreading human tactical innovations throughout civilized space. But perhaps the most important change was philosophical. Humanity had proven that technological superiority was not the ultimate arbiter of interstellar conflict. Ingenuity, determination, and the refusal to accept defeat could overcome even overwhelming odds. The galaxy had expected humanity to shatter when faced with superior force. Instead, they had shattered the assumptions that had governed interstellar relations for millennia. They had proven that any species could resist, could fight back, could win against impossible odds. On the anniversary of the first attacks, a monument was erected on Earth, a simple stone bearing the names of every human who had died in the Liberation War. But the inscription at its base carried a message that resonated across the galaxy. To those who attack without warning, know that humanity remembers. To those who seek freedom from oppression, know that humanity stands ready. To those who doubt the power of determination over technology, know that you have not met humanity. The galaxy was a different place now, shaped by the refusal of one small blue world to accept conquest. And as humanity looked outward to the stars, they did so not as prey fleeing predators, but as protectors of all those who refused to surrender their freedom. The war had ended, but the legacy of human resistance would echo through the cosmos forever. They had been attacked without warning, and the galaxy had expected them to shatter. Instead, they had become the force that shattered empires and freed worlds. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as victims but as liberators.